This time of year, most people think the number one finishers in fantasy football are obvious, and most of the time they would be wrong. In this video, I'm going to show you the real dark horse number one overall candidates at every position. But if this is your first time here, I'm Joe. I've done over 1 billion views in sports over the last decade, but more importantly, I've helped thousands of people just like you win their fantasy league. But the way I've structured these videos is always the same. First, I start the video with the top NFL news stories, and then I tell you why they matter for fantasy football so that you're up to date. That's just to deliver some value right off the bat. And then I answer my 5 favorite YouTube comments from yesterday's video. That's just to reward positivity and smart questions in every video. It's also a little bit of an engagement hack for me because the more comments I get, the more that this video will get boosted by YouTube to new people. And then I jump into today's one key topic, aka the reason that you clicked. The goal is always to deliver on every single click, so feel free to skip ahead if you need to, but let's jump right into today's news. Kenneth Walker, in particularly the Seahawks offense, is looking great. New offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak. It looks like that zone run heavy game plan, all of these things are kind of coming together early in the season. I guess overall, want to be overweight on Seattle offensive players. I think it's one of those situations where people might undervalue what this offense can do early in the season. And I want to be early on that. So guys like JSN, we've been talking about Zach Charbonnet for quite a while too late. And then, of course, we get a little bit of Kenneth Walker action in there as well. But I always like to see this type of news story this time of year. Chris Rodriguez, obviously no more Brian Robinson in Washington. So we're keeping a closer eye on Chris Rodriguez. He's a guy that is at least one of those guys that's a little bit bigger and has a lot of speed. So if we end up seeing kind of like anyone take this Brian Robinson role, I think it's probably going to be Chris Rodriguez. I'm kind of staying away a little bit from this offense in general, at least the running game. We still have Eckler there taking a lot of the passing game snaps, but still looking at this, monitoring closely. Adam Thielen did end up taking a pay cut to go to Minnesota. So he took a $2 million pay cut to make that deal happen, landing with the Vikings just days before week one. The Vikings ended up giving multiple mid-round picks to get him. So I think they're going to use him. And I think that's something that, at least early in the season, makes a lot of sense to grab some Thielen shares, especially in PPR, while we're waiting for that suspension on Addison to play itself out. Also, looking at Jalen Naylor in that hand, it looks like it's at least possible that he's going to play in week one. So, some Minnesota news for you. There's a little bit of fluff today in the news, but this is obviously nice to see if you were kind of attacking some Bengals stuff in drafts. It looks like Joe Burrow had the best training camp of his entire career. So, take that for what it's worth. But if they're dialed in, Jamar Chase looks like he's still obviously the number one overall pick in most drafts. But even if Burrow doesn't have that rushing upside, still some top five upside for sure. Spending, I guess a lot of it comes down to how poor this defense is as well. So let's jump into some video comments, right? That's why you're all here. Let's see what we got here. Found you on Instagram over a year ago, and now you're in my YouTube feed. Glad to be here. I actually love to hear that because getting people from Instagram to the YouTube videos actually a lot more difficult than you might think. Uh, in one of my draft boards, I got Lamb and Brian Thomas Jr., but my running backs feel weak. I've got Walker and Hampton as starters and Pacheco on the bench. Any players I should be targeting for a trade? I'm glad you asked, my man. I think it was 2 days ago. Well, we've done 2 videos on it so far on guys that we should be trading for. So on the wide receiver sides of things, the guys that we talked about in that video, Calvin Ridley, DJ Moore, Emeka Egbuka, George Pickens, Jamison Williams. You can go check out that video if you want more context on that. On the running back side of things, guys that I'm trying to trade for right now, Chase Brown, Alvin Kamara, RJ Harvey, Omarion Hampton, and Jordan Mason. You're welcome. Hope that helps. If you want more context, go watch those videos, but those are the guys that I'm targeting right now in trades. What else we got here? Sorry, the Seahawks offensive line is not trash. Yeah, I mean, I guess I was just saying how bullish I am on Seattle, but I do disagree with you with the offensive line. I would hold pretty sturdy that's at least a bottom five offensive line. I guess if you want to have like a little bit of hope, like the system itself, like run first, like Clint Kubiak, all of that should put the linemen in like a good position to succeed at least, but they do not have a lot of talent. I stand by that, my man. Why are we talking trades when the season hasn't even started yet? Yeah, I guess in general, man, there's a lot of opportunity in trades this time of year because basically you're getting like there still hasn't had been like that week one reveal, right? We think we know what's going to happen, but we're not quite sure. And it's a good time to me, at least, to do like some 2-for-1 trades on guys that maybe you missed that you were really targeting that you wanted. And I think it's always going to be a good time to take advantage of like overreactions, like narratives from camp, like injuries that maybe weren't as big a deal as people thought that made people fall in drafts, or maybe if we were to redraft today, that they would have gone up in drafts. So yeah, I honestly think it's a great time to trade, to be completely honest. What else we got here? I'm hoping everyone is wrong about Brees. Yeah, I guess to be clear, I'm not rooting against Brees. If anything, the opposite. I hope that he gets the volume that we would love to see. I think he's talented. I'm just worried about the Jets in general, and the constant drumbeat all offseason of him seeing less volume is something that's really hard for me to ignore. Let's see what else we got here. Really dig this format. Feel that I get more value out of this versus fast talking and rambling on those 15 different guys. Keep up the good work. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. The goal is definitely to do something a little bit different than what those guys are doing. At least that's the goal. I probably talk a little bit too fast sometimes too, but the fact that it's not all edited together to have all these flashy things to keep your attention, I kind of want this to be like a one way just hangout. Just we'll catch up on some news, answer some questions, and then I'll at least give you some sort of value towards the end as well. That's the goal. So I'm glad you're liking it, man. Thanks for being here. There's one more that I hearted. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, it's right here. I forgot to heart it. Traded JT and Romadunze for Bucky and Egbuka. A lot of replies on this one too. This is like another thing I probably haven't mentioned. I love when you guys like are in the comments answering other people's questions too. I don't have all the answers, guys. I'll give you my take. I've been doing this for a long time, but it's really helpful for you guys to jump in here. I want it to feel like a community. Like let's keep it between the lines. But this is very respectful. So I agree with the comments here. I think that this is a trade that I would do. I think JT and Bucky basically a wash. Egbuka and Odunze, I have them pretty close in rankings. I had to double check it, but I do have Egbuka one tier higher. So both of these guys, Bucky and Egbuka, I have slightly ahead in my rankings. So yeah, I would do this deal. I would do this deal. If I didn't get to your question, now's a good time to remind you guys that I do have a membership community. It is called the Fantasy Accelerator. Make sure you guys check it out. Link in the description, fantasyaccelerator.com. Everything you need for your draft. If you've already drafted, everything you need in season. If you're not ready for the draft kit yet, get my top 150 rankings completely free at top150free.com. This is the exact list that I'm using in every draft this season. Cool. All right, let's jump into today's key topic. The dark horse #1 overall candidate at every position. This is always kind of a fun video to make. There's a couple short forms as well that I've done on this topic. It's always like fun to think that like this guy, if everything goes right, he could actually lead the position in points. I think that's pretty cool. So let's start at quarterback. And an offense that I've been talking about a lot, and a player that I've been talking about a lot at quarterback is Dak Prescott. So let's talk about Dak. I think that this offense is still somehow a little bit underrated. But let's just go through like quickly why Dak in particular makes a lot of sense. For me, this is like a clear volume play. Even before that hamstring tear last year, 36 to 38 pass attempts was his average per game. That's pretty elite passing volume in general. Dallas is projected for basically that again. Let's zoom out slightly so you guys can see here. So let's just say if we get 37 pass attempts per game, we might even get more with how bad this defense is going to be. I think it's going to be a good situation for Dak with those weapons that he has. The offense is really built to air it out to the point of the talent, right? They were a fast-paced offense last year as well. But in terms of the weapons that they have and why this is an offense that I'm targeting, I think that it's one of those situations where you just kind of got to let them cook a little bit, right? So Dallas added George Pickens. Just talked about him. We've been talking about him all offseason. Really that perfect complement to CD. They have that downfield threat, that contested catches guy. Now that they can just continue to pepper CD underneath. It's exactly what they needed, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if this running game isn't that good, anyways. So I think they're going to do a lot of passing around the line of scrimmage as well. So get Dak involved there. But even just like that move, I think makes a really big difference for a really fast paced offense for a defense that might not be as good after losing Micah Parsons, right? So I think that is a big part of it. So the Parsons trade. But then also, like, this is what I keep coming back to. What if last year was the stone floor, right? Like, even before the injury, QB11 in points per game, despite 23rd in accuracy, and he lost basically, Lamb wasn't healthy most of the year, right? So if that was a down year for Dak last year, I got to zoom out again. If that was a down year for Dak last year, if it was the floor, then what do we get this year with a healthy Dak, CD, Pickens, pass heavy scheme, a lot of pace? To me, it's the dark horse quarterback one overall that you can get in like the ninth, 10th round. I'm a big Dak fan this year. Let's do wide receiver next. Who do you guys think this is? It's not George Pickens. It's not DJ Moore. It's not Egbuka. I'm trying to think of like some guys that I've been talking about a lot this year. I think it could be Drake London. Let's talk about my boy Drake London. Drake London last year. I think this was like the time that we finally had like his floor actually lead to a spike. Some would call that a breakout. And the good news on the breakout is we know exactly when it happened. It was when Penix took over. It was when Penix took over. 13 targets per game. Absolutely crazy. 39% target share. He was the wide receiver one overall for multiple games in that stretch. I don't think it's crazy to say that he was like basically cementing himself as a wide receiver one for the next season just in those first few games. Matt Harmon's reception perception, something that I look at every single year when it comes to wide receivers. He wins all over the field, guys. Man coverage, press coverage, zone coverage. Like, he's just one of those guys that's going to get open and he's going to earn targets from Penix in this fast paced offense. So we already got the breakout, but I think what we got was proof. And what we got proof of was the ceiling, both of the offense, but also this player and his talent in general. We always knew he was going to potentially be like a consistent guy, but top 3 in red zone volume. I don't hear a lot of people talk about the red zone upside of Drake London, but I actually think that that is something that is super important, obviously. So if we're going to have Penix hyper fixated on one wide receiver, which I think is possible, and we're also going to get a bunch of efficiency here, I think this is just a matter of time before he kind of elevates and takes that next step, right? 2.45 yards per route run, that was already top 10. I just think that in general, the consistency, the target volume, if anything, it could probably end up raising his floor from like obviously what we had the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Even if we end up somewhere in the middle for most of the season, I still think there's a chance that he could be the wide receiver one overall. Let's talk about running back. Someone that I haven't probably talked about enough for how much I like him, Derrick Henry. Let's talk about my boy Derrick Henry. There's a lot to like for a guy this age who doesn't seem to really be slowing down a ton. If anything, last year was like a revitalizing situation. He was the RB2 overall in his first year with the Ravens. Sorry for my handwriting. The thing that I keep coming back to, though, that was different, obviously the offense was better, but when we have Lamar, what really changed for him was the amount of light boxes that he was actually facing. Only 20, or actually 20.2% of the time he faced a light box. And that's obviously because of Lamar, right? So anytime that you give a guy like this, with this size, this speed, all the freak ability, that much time, like clean rushing lanes, and when we know that that's not going to change, defenses can't load the box. in general against Lamar. I just think it's just a talent amplifier and it's just a ceiling amplifier in general. So I think the age myth is what we probably should talk about, I guess. The Ravens just gave him 25 million. So they don't seem worried. First running back over 30 years old to hit $15 million a year. 2,100 yards, 18 TDs last year. At age 31. So if there was a decline, I didn't see it. And I think most of the time, these NFL teams, they're so close to it, right? I think they basically tell you what they think of the player with their wallets, and he did just get a big deal. And the TDs are also not going to go away. Not on this offense, right? And not for this player. Double-digit touchdowns in 7 straight seasons. And then what I keep coming back to in terms of like, you have to find the bear case for anyone, right? So what if the age and the age cliff, like what if that's the only thing I can come up with? Like, yeah, maybe he doesn't catch passes, all of those things, but he breaks big plays, elite offense, light boxes. Like he's gonna have all the opportunity in the world to score. What if the age is like really the only thing that we can knock on him? Then for me, this is kind of a no-brainer. Kind of a no-brainer. Like, would anyone be shocked if he led the league in rushing? Absolutely not. Would anyone be shocked if he led the league in TDs? Then all you really need him to do is separate himself in that regard and make up for some of the passing game stuff that he doesn't get with one of those things: yards, touchdowns, big plays. So when you're trying to find like a dark horse running back one, someone outside like the top 5, I don't think you can really find anyone that is more likely than Derrick Henry. Tight end's an interesting one. It's a couple guys we've been talking about, like constant drumbeat this year. But the guy that I want to talk about is Evan Engram. New team, Evan Engram. This one's also pretty straightforward, but a couple things that I haven't heard many people talk about. So let's take our time here. So the target magnet ceiling, like what we've seen him do before. Even though last year his efficiency dropped a little bit, we've already seen him be like a true alpha at the position. We've seen it before, right? 25.1% target share in 2024, third best among all tight ends. And then also the thing that we always want to talk about is Sean Payton. The infamous Joker role. This is a real thing. Like people bring it up, but like think about what he did for Jimmy Graham. Think about what like he's done for some of these like really talented running backs in the passing game. It's really just trying to take advantage of what Ingram's strengths are. And if you need to have like someone next to Sutton as like that number 2 option, I think this still makes a ton of sense. So Sutton needs a number 2. I still like Mims quite a bit. I obviously love RJ Harvey quite a bit, but it could easily be Engram. And at a position where you basically have a big drop off from the big guns to really anyone that has like league winning upside, I think it's still a guy that has already proven that he can handle the volume before. So he's had the production despite some setbacks, obviously. 27% of routes he drew a target on last year, 4th best again. So he is a target earner at the position. He was battling through some shoulder and hamstring injuries, yet he was still top 5 in targets per route run. So if the floor is top 5 at targets per route run, what happens if he ends up being in the top 3 of that category and scores more touchdowns and still can prove that he can hold a number 2 target share? To me, that's potentially the tight end 1 overall that you can draft much, much later. But if you guys want my round by round draft thoughts, check this video out next. Hit subscribe. See you guys later.